Okay, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the Carrie remake right now, but this is only going to be a quick video, and I figured I may as well get this out of the way since this game has just been released at the time of this review. So without further ado, let's take a gander at Hyrule Warriors for the Wii U. As you can most likely tell, this is in no way part of the Zelda canon, but instead a spin-off title combining the gameplay of the Dynasty Warriors games and the Legend of Zelda series. Now, I've personally never played a Dynasty Warriors game before, mostly because there are so goddamn many of them that I don't know where to start. But it's nonetheless pretty impressive that Nintendo managed to get the development team for these games Omega Force to make another game in that style and with Zelda aspects. The thing that grabbed my attention though when the trailers were released was that Omega Force was teaming up with another developer, Team Ninja, creators of the 3D Ninja Gaiden games and perhaps most infamously the Dead or Alive series. Brushing aside the fact that Team Ninja has a weird obsession of making their female characters wear the least amount of clothing as possible and have breasts the size of pumpkins, in addition to introducing jiggle physics to the game industry, I still found myself intrigued with Hyrule Warriors, mainly because I loved the first 3D Ninja Gaiden and it looked like the combat in Hyrule Warriors would be fairly similar. And I was somewhat right. Hyrule Warriors is a hack and slasher. It's all about fighting. There are no dungeons to explore, no people to talk to, and no side quests. The game is completely linear from the get-go. You're always told of your next destination via mission objectives, and there's a mini-map on the top right of the screen to help you find your way. All while having to confront hordes and hordes of enemies, mini-bosses, and the occasional regular boss. Each of the many characters you can play as have a wide variety of light attacks and heavy attacks. By alternating between the two in a certain way, you can perform various combos with different flashy ways of beating your opponents to keep the combat fresh. But if combos aren't enough, then as you kill enemies, you fill out the special meter, which allows your character to create a devastating attack that can wipe out a good portion of enemies. And if that wasn't enough, then when tougher enemies and bosses carry out a certain attack, a weakness meter appears above their heads where if you deplete it before they regain their balance, will let you deal a tremendous amount of damage to them and provide great coverage, killing any other enemies that were near it. And if that wasn't enough, then you can use a magic attack which doesn't actually cast any spells, but instead makes your character faster and a bit stronger with one more flashy move to bring it on home. I don't find myself using this too often because in order to fill out the magic meter again, you have to find jars, either by killing enemies or in green pots, and even then, they'll mostly fill up a small amount. Sub-weapons can also be used like the traditional bombs, bow and arrows, boomerang, and hookshot, but they're surprisingly situational. You'll most likely only use these on a specific enemy that's weak to a particular sub-weapon because normal attacks do just fine on the regular foes. Killing enemies and bosses also give you experience points, and when you have enough, your character will level up and become stronger. This only applies to that specific character, however, but thankfully you have the option of letting the other characters catch up instantly at the cost of some rupees. You earn rupees by, of course, killing enemies and breaking pots, but at the end of each level you'll receive more rupees, where depending on how well you did will determine how many you gain. The roster of playable characters is surprisingly dense. If you're a Zelda nut, then you'll recognize a lot of faces in this game. We've of course got Link, Impa, and Princess Zelda to play as, but from the Ocarina of Time era, there's also Sheik, Darunia, and Princess Ruto. From the Twilight Princess era, we've got Midna, Zant, and for some weird reason, Agatha, an extremely huge bug enthusiast that only acted as a lengthy side quest in Twilight Princess. Regardless, she is pretty fun to play as. And yes, there are even characters from the shockingly mixed Skyward Sword. Only two, oddly, but we've been given the delightful opportunity to play as either the babbling buffoon that is Fi or the fabulously flamboyant Girahim. And then there's the new kid in town, Lana. Her specialty is casting barriers that you can bounce off of or shatter and create a large explosion of shards. It's a shame though that despite being titled a white sorceress, she doesn't cast any different kind of spells. Not a huge loss though, and what we've got is good enough. I especially love trampling over enemies with this cube. The other available characters are pretty balanced as well. All of them have fairly similar attributes, but have different fighting styles to make them distinct from one another, and they all kick ass in their own different way. You might want to play as an average fighter with decent strength and speed and play as Link. You may want to be quick on your feet and choose Sheik. Or you'll possibly want more attack power at the expense of being slower than the others and choose Darunia. Even the loudmouth herself, Fi, is great to play as. She never did tell me that there was a 70% chance that dancing your opponents to death could be tremendously satisfying. That's the thing about Hyrule Warriors. Blasting away hundreds and hundreds of enemies hardly ever gets old. But sometimes you'll just want to ignore them and get on with your mission. So is there any way that you can get those enemies off your back while you go and do other things? Well, that's where the keeps come in. Certain areas of a map will have a barrage of enemies guarding their territory, and by defeating enough of them, you'll then need to kill the head honcho before you claim that territory for yourself. Every keep you own will provide an army of Hylians and or occasionally Gorons to help you drive back enemy forces. You can also build up your army by capturing outposts, where they'll then gradually add more troops to go into battle. This mechanic reminds me a lot of the Star Wars Battlefront games, except what the Battlefront games had were fairly smart allies. Don't be surprised to see your comrades in Hyrule Warriors standing around doing absolutely nothing. They rarely defend themselves, and aside from the AI for the other characters that are in the level with you, they never even attempt to capture a keep themselves, which is most likely the cause to your numerous defeats. There's a badge system that improves your skill and gives you more abilities and fancy stuff to do at the cost of specific materials that drop from enemies, but wouldn't it be nice to also improve your army and, actually have them do something? Instantly leveling up your characters and adding badges to them is nice and all, but when one of the major elements of the game involves capturing bases and generating a big army, I would expect them not to act like brainless zombies who suck at their jobs. Combat may be the gist of the game, but there are also plenty of hidden goodies to find, mostly involving searching for the returning gold Skulltulas from Ocarina of Time to give you little rewards. But they only appear briefly, so you better get them while you can. The other secrets in the game appertain to discovering a chest that contains heart pieces, heart containers, or a sealed weapon that you can use after you finish the level, which you can also find as a rare collectible by killing enemies. Once that's done, then before you begin another level, you can choose to use that weapon if you want to spice it up a bit. There's also a smithing feature in this pre-battle mode, but I don't really understand the benefits of using it. Something about transferring a weapon skill to another weapon of the same type with no set of skills? Ugh. If you can figure out how this works, please let me know. I'm all ears. That's another thing I'm not fond of about Hyrule Warriors. It doesn't do a good job of explaining how it works. It assumes that you've already played at least one Dynasty Warriors game and expects you to pick it up from there. There are tutorials you can access before the start of a level, and you'll come across plenty of them as you play, but they're only just brief and vague notes. I'm a lover of hack and slash games, yet I couldn't figure out what was going on when I first booted up the game. Hyrule Warriors gives you different modes to play with: Legend mode, Free Play mode, and Adventure mode. You don't have to do this solo though, because if you have a buddy to play with, they can assist you on the Wii U gamepad as another fighter, while player 1 uses the TV in either a Pro Controller or a Wiimote and Nunchuck, where light attacks can be done by waggling the Wiimote like in Twilight Princess. Personally, I prefer using the Pro Controller, but the gamepad feels pretty good too. The only major problem with the co-op multiplayer is that the resolution is lowered a bit when you use it and you can't play online, so I won't be able to play with my dad or my brother when I'm at university or something. I'm also really disappointed that there's no competitive multiplayer, which I feel is a completely missed opportunity. There's seriously a lot of potential for trying to take over your friends' keeps or their headquarters or defeating their leader, anything like that, but sadly the thought hasn't crossed their minds. I certainly hope that in the future Nintendo will release an update of being able to compete with your friends and family. I think it could really encourage more replayability. Anyway, Legend mode is essentially this game's story mode with absolutely beautiful looking cutscenes. Seriously, this style of the cutscene should be in every Zelda game. They're a hell of a lot more cinematic than they usually are, and never once do you have to press a button to skip to the next line of text. And what's more is that you can pause the cutscenes at any time and skip them. That doesn't sound like much, but for a Zelda game, it means a hell of a lot more than you think. The story itself isn't really that special. Zelda looks over the Knights of Hyrule and makes out that Link is the hero of time and it's his duty to stop a black witch called Sia. Oh, really, Team Ninja? You couldn't resist putting in at least one overly sexualized female in your game? And what kind of a name is Sia? Were her parents just about to say goodbye to someone before they named her? So Sia's goal is to, of course, claim the Triforce for herself, all while simultaneously resurrecting Ganondorf, who seriously needs a haircut but takes no time at all to betray her. Legend mode is also the only way you can unlock a majority of the fighters. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that you have to unlock the playable characters in this game. I really don't get this about fighting games. What is the purpose of having the characters locked? I wouldn't mind so much if they at least added a cheat code, but Nintendo is very stingy with that sort of thing. It is worth it at least when you unlock the Demon King himself and get to play as him for the first time in Zelda history. Ganondorf is a freaking beast. Wielding 2 swords means that he hits like a tank and his attacks could possibly take out half the enemies in the keep. Needless to say, once you've unlocked Ganondorf, you've pretty much won the game. Moving on from that, free play mode allows you to go back to an already beaten chapter from legend mode unless you fight with any character you choose. But strangely enough, the biggest draw to the game was the adventure mode. This consists of short missions that you need to do in order to fill up a square of the overworld map from the original Zelda on the NES. This mode just basically gives you another way of earning experience, weapons, hearts, rupees, and characters. By completing certain missions, you receive a card that's able to reveal a secret that was actually on the original Zelda and gain access to goodies hidden in the level. If you know the original Zelda like the back of your hand, then this shouldn't be a problem for you. But if you're new to the experience, then don't worry, because if you earn the compass, you can use it to give you a good idea of where the secret might be. And talking of the original Zelda, if you pre-ordered this game or got it day 1, you're given the 8-bit sword and shield, which you can only use after you complete legend mode. And good God is it broken. If you're gonna use the 8-bit sword and shield, then prepare to make the rest of the game way too easy. Not that it's a difficult game anyway, but have fun wiping the floor with enemies with little to no effort. Also a day 1 feature is the challenge mode, where you have to survive through endless levels and see how far you can go. And that's Hyrule Warriors in a nutshell. In a sense, it's nothing more than just a distraction while we wait for the newest Zelda game to be released. However, quite a number of people have been saying that Zelda games become more and more formulaic as Nintendo continues to make more. But Hyrule Warriors definitely proves them wrong and is not only far different from any other Zelda game, but also manages to be pretty damn fun. There are a few little annoyances that end up being a huge problem at times, mainly your idiotic army, but as long as you capture a good number of keeps, then they shouldn't screw you over too often. Even with that said though, I can only recommend this game to fans of The Legend of Zelda. Hyrule Warriors was specifically made to be fan service and is no more obvious than the many winks and nods to other Zelda games, especially the original on the NES and Ocarina of Time. Oh my god, she's back! Even remastered in HD, the Great Fairy is still creepy. But speaking of remastering, this game looks absolutely gorgeous, especially the cutscenes, and I hope that the latest Zelda on the Wii U will look just as good as this. The music, on the other hand, is strange. A large portion of it is remixes of well-known Zelda pieces, but in a heavy metal style. Some of the songs are fully orchestrated, but most of the time, it's heavy metal. I'm not too sure if this really suits a fantasy game, but I'll let you be the judge of that. All in all, I think Hyrule Warriors is an interesting experiment for the Zelda series, and I had a blast playing it. It's just a big shame that the replay value isn't totally high once you've done everything. Give it a shot and see what you think. You may be indifferent to my opinion, you may not. I'll give Hyrule Warriors around an 8.3 out of 10. Standing for, it's a hack and slasher with elves, what more do you want? My name's Josh Smith, I praise the treasure and I pick apart the trash. See you next time for the movie review of the Carrie remake.